Good afternoon, YouTube America, my fellow GMers and gamers and so on and so forth. Another one of my endless seeming rants about the gaming industry and the games in general. And today I'm talking about 4.0 and 5.0 Dungeons and Dragons, if you need that reference. I recently joined a online forum for DMs only, and there's over 8,000 members, and quite a few of them are on there trading ideas and concepts, asking what ifs and how to's, and gives us all a chance to put our 2 cents worth in and come up with some good stuff or see other things we haven't considered from somebody else's perspective or point of view. Kind of the whole point of those things. Well, I'm going to reserve my judgment on the 5.0 version. I don't have it. I've not read it yet. I have not played it or run it. Truth be told, I'm still trying to catch up on the 3.5 stuff that fell between the cracks. Money is not an unlimited supply, so I'm not like in my youth when I used to drop $50 a week at a game store without thinking twice about it. It's a little bit tougher to do that today, especially now that your dollars just don't go as far as they did. I know it's nostalgic to say it, but there was a time when I could go into Ivor's Dungeon in Des Moines and spend $50, as they said, and come away with a core source book and maybe a module or two or a second source book and a handful of miniatures, whatever I needed. And, it's a bit tougher to do that these days. These books run $30, $40 a piece and up. It is what it is. That's one of the reasons that I've been going to Jay's CD and Hobby here in Des Moines. That's one of our local game companies, stores, or whatever you want to call it. They buy a lot of used stuff other people are getting to 5.0, and then they're unloading their older versions and say, hey, there's always a market for it, which is something I get. Wizards of the Coast and their parent company, they need to keep a profit going. They need a bottom line. So they keep reintroducing basically the same system over and over. They do a lot of serious adjustments and tweaks to it, but in truth, they're just rebuilding a pretty good system. Now, this isn't perfect, not by a mile. You wouldn't have had, hundreds of issues of Dragon and Dungeon magazines with constant updates and modifications and suggestions from players if it had been perfect. But that's just the way these things work, right? They improve over time. And then it's like old Coke versus new Coke kind of thing. It's a matter of your flavor and your age, and all the younger guys and gals coming up. You're getting introduced to 4.0 and 5.0, and the old stuff, you don't get it. And I understand. Oh, that's nostalgic for FatCo. I haven't played FatCo in 35 years. Even back then, we started in 2.0. We started. It was D20s, and they talk about the D20 system. Well, gee, no offense, folks, but I used D20s a lot back then. Even with FatCo, we still tossed 20s. The D20 came in the pack, in the bubble pack. So, come on, right? It's a matter of semantics and some minor mechanical adjustments, or some major ones, I guess, if you want to make that kind of argument. I'm not really here to argue that. That's a different subject. I get it, like I said, that Wizards of the Coast needs to make profits, and so they keep reintroducing things. However, I do think that they've dropped the ball in the aspect that there's still a huge audience for their older stuff, and they could run sidelines of modules and source books and updates for 2.0, 3.5, and still make some money doing it, right? Maybe I'm so out of touch with things I don't get it. Now, 4.0, I had the opportunity to both GM it and to play in it as a player. An associate of mine purchased like 12 of the books, dropped $220, $300, and with this grand plan to run this huge campaign that, well, when he got it and he started to do the work, he realized that there's a lot of work being a good GM, and he just didn't want to put the effort into it. He'd rather play. So I went from being a player in 4E to a GM running it in 4E. Now, from that perspective, 4E reminded me a lot of the early stuff from the old box editions. A lot of basic concept, basic stuff. Talk about FatCo. Well, D20 is just a revamped version of FatCo. Argue it if you will, but it's the truth. Build on it because that's where it came from. Meanwhile, they simplified things. It's a good system for beginners, people who don't want or need a hard option of control over creating, either characters in your world building. I'm just saying, there's a lot of advantages to the system. Uh, I found some of their approach to using spells and feats were, I don't want to say original, but they were different and a bit interesting. Frankly, it reeks of Magic the Gathering. No offense there, folks. Just saying, to me, in my opinion, it reeked of card games. Like they were trying to bridge the gap between the tabletop pen and paper and the card game crowd so they can get them in. And have kept waiting, and maybe they came out with them and I haven't seen them, but I always was waiting for the cards to come out because hey, with the system the way they set up for 4E, you might as well have those in cards. So when you play your feet, you drop your feet on the table and then it goes to the discard pile. You know, if they haven't done it, there's a missed opportunity for making some money there, Wizards. Anyhow, Anyhow, as a player, what I didn't like was a 4.0 was the lack of personal control over my character class. I was given some very strict set of rules to follow, and there wasn't a whole lot of supplemental rules to modify those things unless you start kit bashing outside the box, which kind of defeats the purpose here. That's the same thing I say to everybody else when it comes to the old 2.0. I use a lot of that material in my 3.5 games because I can kit bash it to fit. There's a lot of good stuff that did not make the transition over to the 3.5. Just like there's a lot of good stuff in the older versions, 2.0 and 3.5, that have not surfaced in 4.5 or 4.0 or 5.5 or 6297 or whatever next version is coming. Now maybe it will transition at some point in one of the unlimited number of source books and player aids, in order to get us get the company more money. But I've noticed that certain types of spells and nuances and the way they're worded drop off or change, which if you think about it from the perspective of a modern system, you can have two spells almost identical, but the way they're worded makes that spell just a slightly different twist on the other. So you actually, in essence, have two types of that particular kind of spell, or three or four or five, depending on how you want to look at it. That's just an example of kit bashing those things. The 4.0, from the GM perspective, I found myself extremely limited in the depth control area of the game. You can do a lot of modifications, you can change things, but it was difficult because I didn't have the source material that I do have in my older systems. I mean, that's just from pure volume. We only had 12 books to work with, and three of them were freaking treasure guides. And no offense to that, it's a great source because you got lots of stuff, but the supplemental rules that came with them weren't all that clear, and I'm not totally 100% sure on how some of it worked. I didn't have the time to devote to studying it like I've done this older stuff because I know it like the back of my hand to some degree. I mean, I'm not going to claim to be a rules doctor and be able to quote Bible and verse and page of stuff, but I know I'm pretty sure things are there, and I can go look for them if I need to. And I got online references and stuff that make that a little quicker than it used to be. Although I'm still the pen and paper, the book guy. I like the book. I like the feel. I like the weight. I have no problem with the digital versions and stuff. But there comes a point in time where what happens when your laptop breaks, or you don't have electricity, or talk about post-apocalyptic survival nuts. I would strongly suggest to anybody who's planning for the end of the world should have a whole shelf full of this kind of stuff because it's entertaining and it consumes a lot of time. Just a thought, right? Uh, so hey, if you like your system, it's great. If you like the new versions, awesome. If you got the funds to keep throwing at new stuff every couple of years and basically rebuying 20 or 30 books every 4 years, 5 years, then hey, awesome. It's just like and we'll go on a rant a little bit here about Pathfinder. I haven't played Pathfinder, haven't read it. I have glanced at it a couple times in the books. I've followed a lot of other vlogs who deal with Pathfinder, and I've learned quite a bit from them. One of the things I've learned about it, just like I learned about Swords of Sorcery and a dozen other hack and slash Dungeons and Dragon clones, they're clones at the end of the day. Pathfinder is a clone. D&D set the bar. Everybody else is just trying to mimic it and make money. It is what it is. You can make all the arguments in the world about this adjustment, that adjustment, this difference. The mechanics are different. The way the system's set up, blah blah blah. But the premise is the same. Thank you, my friends, and until next time.